we finally get this sit-down scene between Sally and Venita, which was heavily promoted in the trailer, and anytime they would release like a sneak preview. We saw this scene a lot before actually seeing it on this week's episode. And Venita is saying to Sally, I don't want you to hang out with Craig. Sally is saying back to Venita, I want to hang out with Craig. I'm sorry, I'm a grown adult. I've never had another grown adult tell me what to do. And look, I get where Venita is coming from. We've all been there where we're trying to look out for our friends and save them a heartbreak, like she said. However, it never works. It never works because for however many of us have been in Venita's situation, we've also been in Sally's situation where someone is telling us, I don't think this guy is the best fit for you. I don't know if that's going to work out. You probably need to stay away. Do we listen? No. Never, not one single time. It could be my mom being like, don't hang out with him. And you're like, sorry, mom, I just got to do it. You just got to do it. And you got to experience it for yourself. Otherwise, you're going to be going around on this hamster wheel wondering what if and, suppressing feelings that don't go away. So it just was never going to work anyways. And I kind of don't really know why Venita tried so hard, because Sally has said in press too that, Venita kind of did the same thing to her last season, like as the roles were being reversed, where Sally really did not like JT for personal reasons, but Venita kept pursuing him and didn't really care about how Sally felt about it. Now I'm not like a Sally enthusiast, so it doesn't like bring me joy to sit here and stick up for Sally. But I just think, it's girlhood. You got to let the guy break your heart. You're never just going to be like, oh yeah, you're right, and then walk away. It's never going to happen. Something interesting that I did also hear on the Southern Charm after show was that Venita, according to Craig, Venita said that they were in a cult, that friend group, Craig, Corey, Sally, and Charlie. Craig said Venita said that Sally was acting like she was in a cult. And I'm like, okay. And then Venita and Charlie are talking about it too in their sit down, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like a confessional, but not really. But yeah, Venita confirms it. She's like, what did I call you guys? Or what did you guys call yourself? And Charlie's like, the cult. I need to know where the nickname came from and if Craig is accurate in saying that Venita was the one that called them that to begin with. Kind of weird. You want to talk about weird? We got to talk about Nick and Natalie and Austen Kroll's interview on the Viall Files, which y'all know how I feel about Nick Viall. I said, I'm getting ahead of myself. In case you missed it, Austen Kroll was on the Viall Files this week, and Natalie, in a lot of people's opinions, very flippantly brought up the tragic passing of Austen Kroll's older sister, Kyle, who was 9 when she passed away. I believe he said would be turning 30 this year. It was a tragic family accident. She fell off a cliff while their family was hiking, and Austen has talked about this on the show. There's this one scene in particular where he's on a date with Chelsea and he is recounting this very traumatic experience that he had when he was a little kid. There's other scenes where Austen's parents are moving out of their childhood home and they come across some of Kyle's things, her stuffed animal, and he shares his experience there. And then also on the Southern Charm reunion, there was a season of time where a lot of cast members lost a sibling. And so they really, had a shared trauma experience, and they talked a lot about that. Austen, Taylor Ann Green lost a brother, and then Olivia Flowers also lost a brother. So, Austen has talked about it before, but it's the way that the question was asked that's really just rubbing fans the wrong way. It's very early in the interview. I want to say not even 10 minutes into it. And the top of the show was just banter, just kicking it. They had barely even gotten into any Southern Charm storylines, really gotten into it. And Natalie goes, I just want to, something along the lines of like, jump to something else for a second. She said, I'm sure we'll go back to Southern Charm. She says, I didn't know about your sister tragically passing. And Austen goes, oh yeah, we are flipping the script. I'm paraphrasing, but that was the vibe of the conversation. She's like, sorry, you don't have to talk about it. And he was like, no. And then the conversation progressed. And what really was the worst part for me personally was Natalie saying things like, what was this cliff? Were you there? And it's just, I was like, whoa, like, we all had that reaction, right? Where we just felt weird and icky on the inside. And it's one thing to want to ask about something that he has talked about before, that honestly has shaped a lot of who he is as an adult. And we've seen him talk about that in his therapy sessions. And he's been open about that. But I think the way that the topic was approached and breached and positioned to Austen was super, super off-putting. I think, everybody across the Bravo fandom has praised Austen for the way that he handled the situation because, the body language was body languaging. His leg, he was shaking his leg, and you could just tell that he was caught off guard by it, which who wouldn't be? And, I had this thought, and I wrote it on Threads, and I posted it on my Instagram story. But you would think for however much Nick and Natalie are constantly punching down on content creators, I feel like they should hire one to do some of their show prep, because it feels like every other week when they're interviewing someone who's on a Bravo show, they stick their foot in their mouth. What is this cliff? Were you there? In what world are those appropriate questions to ask a guest 10 minutes into your interview? I'm rarely speechless. And this is one of the times I just genuinely couldn't believe it. And I still really can't. And, part of me, the part of me that always wants to give people the benefit of the doubt is reminding myself that she's 26 and doesn't have a journalism background, doesn't really have an interviewing background. The only reason she's really on that show is because her husband is the host of it. But like, if that's the career path that you want to go, you better be ready for moments like this, because I believe that they deserve all the backlash that they're getting for this. Truly.